Something we like here on Morning Wake Up is, well, at least in terms of how the show is set up and how we pick guests and how we present it. Yeah, do we like to be right? We like to be right. But I think you've heard with political arguments, I mean, we try to present the truth. We listen to both sides. And, there's right answers, there's wrong answers. And then sometimes there's pushing it too far. Now, husbands out there of the world, unite for a moment. You know that if you try to always be right, you're going to be, even if you're right, you're going to be wrong. So you need to know how to tread and carefully in this. The idea of always having to be right, is that a general flaw? Is it something that can be overcome? Let's bring in the good doctor. Dr. John Braccio, Regional Psychological Services of East Lansing, and the podcast always on the website, drjohnb.com. I generally think he's always right, but I don't think he pushes that as hard as some people do. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Well, good morning to you, Dave. I think it's a human flaw. Most of us have at one time or another the need to always be right. Fortunately, most of us eventually realize this greatly damages relationships, whether they be with our partners, family, coworkers, or acquaintances. So persons are wise when they begin to see their relationships are faltering, and persons will either argue with them or just dismiss them, don't even want to deal with them. So neither is positive, and relationships change negatively and can die. So we really do have to watch out for this, and they can again become sustainable, even if we've lost them by, quote, always being right, if we're going to be mature and discuss areas of disagreement in a civilized manner. And the problem's clear. You mentioned it before, like we have all these disagreements politically in the country now,
Sure.
And sometimes people won't talk to each other. A problem is if people will transpose this, quote, always right in politics, and all of a sudden carry in other parts of their lives, because pretty people, you don't want to be known as a know-it-all. This is really a negative thing. And if I can, I'll mention some strategies that you can do to really try to just overcome this the need to always be right and eventually be known as a know-it-all if you don't watch out.
Kind of rein it in and eliminate it maybe if you can, right? At least rein it in.
Well, you first have to recognize there are various ways to accomplish something. There's not just, quote, your way, okay? And then, what can be seen as right today can be seen as wrong tomorrow. So you can have a big argument with somebody, quote, thinking you're right, and then all of a sudden everything changes. And I think you have to be mindful, and you have to actively listen to the opinions of others and really give an honest attempt to understand them. You just don't always have to be right. Then if you do this, if you listen, then you can present your opinion in a civilized way. Okay, this can hopefully result in good discussion and even healthy debate. And remember, it's not a weakness, Dave, to accept the views of others. Tolerance of the views of others is really a sign of confidence and strength. So we can accept other persons will not agree, and so just leave a lot of areas. Just don't even debate if you know there's not going to be an agreement. As we know, religion and politics sometimes fit in those categories. Then you want to minimize the number of emotional hills you're willing to die on, if you will, in terms of an argument. And then ultimately just kind of relax and smell the roses and don't feel a need to argue about things and have a need to always be right. Life's too short to be arguing and fighting with people. There are people that seem to thrive on arguing and fighting, and often they have few friends or just a few people like them, and they just argue all the time. So just best to relax, best to be respectful, best to present your views in an honest way, and recognize with some people there's just no point in arguing. You're just not going to agree. So just kind of smell the coffee, smell the roses, just try to just lead a peaceful, happy life.
The idea of every point being worth arguing over, and as important as the one that came prior and the one that's going to come later, that's going to be, and you get to that with the number of emotional hills is what you're saying there. That's problematic, isn't it? Because you can't differentiate between the benign and something that, you really do need to draw a line in the sand, because it could be, life impacting, life threatening, whatever the case. You're always making it, it's always boiling over every single point. And there, everyone knows somebody like that. they feel like they've got to argue it like it's the most important thing on the planet when it's not.
Well, you're right, and they're often angry people, and they make other people angry. So it's kind of a bad conundrum.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't like the person's happy, because if you think you're always right, that's just not how the world works. And particularly when there's so many ways to do something, it's not like there's just one way to do something. But there are people that, you're right, they will argue, they will debate, and they're tiring. I mean, you can just be trying to have a discussion about a car, and also only an idiot would get that car. And all of a sudden you're saying, well, wait a minute now. I like this particular things about this guy. No, those are nothing. What you want is something like it. And something as benign as just saying you like a fruit. You could even like bananas. No. Bananas really aren't good for you. Those are good for monkeys, not for humans. I mean, so you just run into people that are just difficult. So
I wouldn't hang around that person. I love bananas. That person's out. I'm done. That's it.
Listen, I agree. But there are
respect.
these negative
How do we
people.
get back to respectful disagreement, Doc?
I think first of all we have to be mindful. We have to listen.
Okay.
And we have to just recognize that there are different ways of looking at things, and we don't always have to win. We don't even always have to agree. We can listen. You can listen to somebody on something, on a topic. It could be how to run the country, how to run your house, how to run a grocery store, how to run a meat market, whatever it might be, and you don't have to agree with them or disagree with them. You can think about it. Someone can say something. You can say, that's a good idea. You don't have to say, well, I think only an idiot would think that way. But there are people. So I think being mindful, trying to be respectful of other people's views, remembering that part of having good debate and good discussion is willing to fully listen to why does somebody think that? Why do they believe that? And then try to have a discussion. Now, if you are mindful, you listen, you pay attention, and then you present your view, and the person still is attacking you and going on, then there are some people you're just best to, if you have to maintain a relationship, just keep it more at a superficial level. How are you today? What's going on? And just kind of going from there. But there are these know-it-alls and people, and sarcastic people that like to always be right, make negative comments. And
Doc, I was saying at the start, I wasn't kidding either. If you're married and you've been married for a while, you're just nodding at all this and go, I can do this segment. I know this, okay? Because if you don't, I don't think you'll be married very long. I really don't.
No, you have to learn how to pick your fights, if you will, what hill you're going to die on, as they say.
Absolutely.
And marriage, you're right. If you're going to have an effective relationship, and I've been at it 46, 47 years, you try to work as a team. You try to respect each other. You try to take into account the needs and even blind spots of another person. And you just move through life and you work on sharing, communicating, because good relationships does not mean people agree on everything. They've accommodated, but they have to be respectful. If you're living with someone who's not respectful, then that's what can lead to breakups or really negative relationships.
Absolutely.
But people that are sensitive, caring, just tuned into other people's feelings. But we don't have to argue every point someone makes. If someone says something that you disagree with or you think you have a different point, you don't necessarily have to take it up. Otherwise, you can, good share of your discussions are going to be debates as opposed to.
Well, that's right. And it's the bottom line there is it's your discretion, the better part of valor, know when to go into battle and know when to back off and say, okay, not a problem. And also know when the other person, like I said, you better half, listens, hears you out, pauses and says, fine, that's fine. It's not. So you've gone too far, and maybe you've pushed your point too far, and you need to know when you've done so. And then you need to make amends for that. Trying to always be right, it's not a good idea. Prioritizing, having all these things out, and be willing to listen to others honestly, and sometimes go a different direction just because you need to go a different direction. It may not be yours at the moment. These are all good tips today from The Good Doctor. You can find the podcast at drjohnb.com, Regional Psychological Services of East Lansing, our good friend, Dr. John Braccio. Take care, my friend. We'll talk again soon. Look forward to it. And I'm right about that, okay? So don't argue.
On that,
For
I
once.
agree, so we're a team. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you,
buddy.
sir.
Bye-bye.
All right, very good. We're back in a moment on the Morning Wake Up. Don't go away. 1320 WILS.